political football back to the Rosenberg case. I can remember relatives worked on it. I was a child, of course, at the time, very, very young. But nonetheless, the Rosenberg case, when I started to read the New York Times, it was front and center still there in the 50s when, of course, they had the Red Scare. The successor to Boss Walker, Joe McCarthy, was holding a full court. And although we oppose the Zionist state of Israel and their Zionism believes it's racism, as far as Pollock's case is concerned, he should be released. 30 years is long enough for the quote-unquote crime that he committed. But one of the problems they have is he never told them exactly what he did or did not take. And also part of the problem is because of the very, very deep cooperation between the U.S. military intelligence services, etc., with the Israeli government, it's very, very difficult to ascertain what he took and what had been given to them. And of course they have a nuclear weapon and it moves on. One more item here and we'll go to the ball scores from Friday night. The right-wing senator from Utah, Mike Lee, is wanting to use what's called a nuclear option to repeal the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. Takes 51 senators, and he can just attach that to, say, the highway bill or whatever bill. Of course, it would be vetoed, obviously, by President Obama. But the Republicans never give up. This particular procedure was used by the leader of the Senate at the time, Harry Reid, to break a deadlock in filling judicial nominations. A little bit different situation. Republicans don't have enough anti-Obamacare support in the Senate to reach the filibuster-proof threshold. McConnell is already preparing to prove that point on Sunday when the Senate is scheduled to vote on an Obamacare repeal amendment to the GOP's leaders' 3-year highway funding bill. So, again, these machinations will continue on. We've already put this on Facebook. Let's quickly get to the scores from last night, and then we'll get to Carl Rove, make some comments about his article on fundraising with the GOP candidates. In 10, the Phillies were at the Cubs, and the Phillies were victorious over the Cubs 5-3, a game that we were tuned into. The Nationals were in Pittsburgh, Pirates 7-5 in that contest. In 11, the Tigers were in Fenway Park, Red Sox 2-1 in that contest. The White Sox were in Cleveland. Sox shut Cleveland out 6-0. The Dodgers were in New York. LA 7-2 over the Mets. The Orioles were in Florida. Tampa Bay Rays 3-1 in that contest. The Astros were in Kansas City and shut Kansas City out 4-0. The Yankees were in the Twin Cities and got shellacked there. Twins 10-1 over the Yankees. Another game we tuned into. The Atlanta team was in St. Louis. Cardinals 4-2. The Reds were in the Rocky Mountains. Rockies 6-5 in that contest. The Brewers were in Arizona. 2-1. Brewers over the D-backs. The Rangers were in Los Angeles. Rangers 4-2 over the Angels. The Blue Jays were in Seattle. Mariners 5-2 in that contest. The Marlins were in San Diego. Padres 3-1. I guess Nina is happy. The Athletics of Oakland were across the bay in San Francisco. Giants 9-3 in that contest. And so much For Major League Baseball, we'll have more on Major League Baseball, the standings on the Monday morning quarterback. And we'll get to Uncle Carl here and wind us down. Who is winning the GOP money primary contest? That is a simple question there. His name is Donald Trump. He resides in the Big Apple. In the even important money primary, the GOP presidential field has divided into the haves and have-nots. The haves are former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who he's allied with, no doubt, has raised $114 million. The Texas Senator Ted Canadian Cruz, a darling of the right, $52 million. Florida Senator, the other person from Florida, Marco Vegas Rubio, at $45 million. And Wisconsin Governor Boss Walker at $26 million. These figures include funds raised directly by the campaign as well as candidate-associated super PACs through the 10th of June. Excluding super PAC, changes in the ranking in the case of Cruz leads with $14 million to Rubio's $12 million and Bush's $11 million. Remember, when each announced he would run for president, since the FCC rule doesn't allow campaign funding until the candidate is officially in the race. Cruz declared on the 23rd of March, Rubio on April 13th, almost said April Fool's Day, and Bush on June 15th. Walker declared on the 13th of July after the quarterly report deadline had passed. His totals does not include campaign fundraising, but his extensive donor list from his recall election will likely help him scramble of the ranking. It appears that 4 candidates have raised between $20 and $25 million in cash required to compete in the February's 4 nominating contests, with 5% of the national delegates and the $35 to $40 million more needed for the primaries in March and March 1st and April, when about a quarter of the delegates will be up for grabs. Of course, the raise is only part of the picture. A candidate's cash on hand and his burn rate and how quickly the money is spent, also critical in the second quarter. Marco Vegas Rubio, impressively low burn rate of 19%. He smartly saved resources for the primaries. Jeb spent roughly $3.1 million of the $11 million in his campaigns raised, for a burn rate of 27%, which may include startup costs, since he declared 2 weeks before the reporting period ended. Cruz spent 54% of what his campaign raised last quarter, which is high. Boss Walker's burn rate won't be available. The have-nots are 11 there. Includes Texas Perry and his rock. He's at $255,000. Wait a minute. Down. He raised 18. Ranged from 18 million. 18 million. Sorry about that. And Pataki is the one at 255,000. Generally, higher burn rates are ranged from 40% for Rand Paul to 64% for Crazy Ben Carlson. Some have-nots, notably Two-Ton Christie and John Kirsch. They've only recently announced, well, they're not in the game. The haves face challenges too. Jeb Bush's campaign donated 81% were for the maximum contribution of $2,700. That's according to analysis by New York Times. This means donors can't write future checks to his campaign, though they'll still be able to give to super PACs. And that's by comparison 17% to Texas Canadian Cruz. Roughly 47% of Cruz's donations, 28% of Marco Vegas Rubio's were $200 or less. So they're running the Bernie Sanders model here. One candidate is neither have nor have not. Donald Trump raised less than $100,000 in a few days during the filing period. He was an official candidate, but in his campaign, $1.8 million and spent 74% of it. Donald Trump is not encouraging people to donate to his campaign, and no doubt he has the resources to put in millions and millions of dollars. Money is not the most important measurement of a candidate, but it's critical to winning. Hillary Clinton talks of raising $2 billion for the presidential election. It used to be $1 billion was the Cadillac number. Someone in the GOP must demonstrate the ability to keep up. Otherwise, Republican nominees could be nearly defenseless in the general election. Well, no doubt about that. That just means that the Hillary is very tight with the moneyed interest of 1%. The money primary will significantly affect the real primary. And less than 3 weeks from the first debate, it's on the 6th of August. We'll be following that. 4 Republicans are far out in front in the race, the cash race. Come mid-October, we'll see those fundraising keep pace, and more importantly, who's putting those dollars to effective use. That's the burn rate. The Hillary evidently has a very high burn rate also. Now, the Donald Trump, 74%. Of 1.8 million, and if he's counting the Trump plane that he's flying around in, that in itself would obviously mean more that he is spending on his campaign. But self-funded people, no doubt Trump has a ballpark figure he's carrying around in his pocket as far as what he actually is willing, we'll say, to spend. But at the same time, he's getting the bang for his buck. You remember that it's a side trip, many would say, to Laredo, Texas. Mr. Trump was able to get free publicity. So when you look at his $1.8, $2 million that he's spending, a lot of that's for posters, renting of various accommodations, meeting rooms, etc. But at the same time, he's using Trump Towers. I'm not sure how he's doing that. It's a accounting trick. Probably goes down as an expense against himself, but still as a in kind, perhaps. We won't venture into how Trump is putting this down. But at the same time, the exposure this week, since we're in the week that was, the absolute media buy, free media buy, went to one Donald J. Trump. And the rest of the candidates were tagging along. Texas Perry was, as they would say in Ireland, slopping out. Trump was in Texas. I don't know where Texas Perry was. Probably oversleep or something. Who knows? But no, that's right. He was in Washington. He was literally out of town. So I guess now Trump can boast that he ran Texas Perry out of Texas. But Trump will continue to appear. He was in Iowa. I don't know where he'll be the rest of this weekend, but he'll definitely be someplace where TV cameras are. Trump likes TV cameras. The question is, how will Trump start to broaden his issue? Immigration, obviously, he talked at Laredo, Texas. You're down by the U.S. border. That's good for Texas, Arizona, some of the western states. No doubt he'll be in California, close to that border. He's been in Arizona. So look to the other parts of his campaign. Will he be standing outside of military reservations, or where else will Trump be for his foreign policy? You can assume that he's getting ready for August the 6th with gusto. The other candidates are trying to figure out how to contain Trump. Those stratagems will no doubt fall on their face. Will Trump follow a similar tactic that Willard Romney followed in his famous debate in Denver with President Obama? That he was allowed by the old man, anyway, I think he went into retirement, Lara. Anyway, to just run amok. Will the people at Fox let Trump run amok? and they only have the hard questions for Trump, but no doubt